This is Standing Watch. And now, Evangelist Norbert Link.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to our Standing Watch program. What will Europe do when the Third Temple is being built? Two provocative questions. Let's start with Europe first, as it is today. What is Europe's opinion, position towards Israel? Now here is an article by JTA dated July 26. Norway and 6 EU countries voted at the European nations in favor of two resolutions that singled out Israel for criticism as a violator of women's and human rights. France, the Netherlands, Denmark, Ireland, Luxembourg, and Malta joined China, Russia, Iran, and Venezuela, and 29 other nations in supporting a resolution that says that the Israeli occupation remains a major obstacle for Palestinian women and girls with regard to the fulfillment of their rights. Only Canada and the United States voted against the resolution. The United Kingdom, Germany, Brazil, Mexico, Romania, Ukraine were among the 9 nations that abstained. Nikki Haley, the previous US ambassador to the UN, tweeted on Thursday, "It amazes me how the UN condones votes like these. It's a total mockery of human rights to allow Saudi Arabia, Iran, Pakistan, and Yemen to name Israel as the world's only violator of women's rights." Now, the reaction in Germany when it came to the press was interesting. Bild Online wrote about the scandalous UN resolution and Germany's decision to abstain, asking German UN ambassador, "How could Germany be silent, Herr UN ambassador? It is a new low point of the German conduct at the UN regarding Israel, a poor testimony for Germany's UN ambassador Christoph Heusgen. He was not even present during this farce, but sent a replacement." Now, some European countries, and especially the German government with its UN ambassador, might give lip services in support of Israel, but their actions show quite clearly a totally different and disturbing picture of anti-Israeli politics. And ultimately, as the Bible clearly shows, European nations will militarily intervene in the Middle East to occupy the state of Israel and Jerusalem. Now we have a booklet prepared, The Fall and Rise of the Jewish People. This booklet goes into this scenario in great detail. But now imagine another aspect of the development. The politics of most European nations, including and especially including Germany, is already pretty bad when it comes to Israel. But imagine Israel would begin to build the prophesied Third Temple, because the Bible does prophesy that a Third Temple is going to be built prior to Christ's return. Here's an article by Breaking Israel News, dated July 29. The former rabbi of the Old City of Jerusalem and one of the leading rabbis in Israel today said in an interview, "We must do everything in our power to build the temple." The rabbi added that there is a mitzvah, which is a commandment, to build the temple. "Even if we cannot yet offer sacrifices," he said. He added that questions surrounding the renewal of the temple and temple sacrifices should not get in the way of the Third Temple being built. Now, what do you think European nations will do when that happens? Here's an interesting article by JTA dated July 8, saying that Vice President Mike Pence, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, and National Security Advisor John Bolton spoke to the annual Christians United for Israel conference, a sign of how much President Donald Trump values pro-Israel evangelicals. And then the article points out that Mr. Trump has been a close friend to Israel, including moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, defunding the Palestinians, pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal, and recognizing Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. And then this article published an interesting picture of Pastor John Hagee shaking hands with Vice President Mike Pence at the Christians United for Israel annual conference in 2017. Now, we all should know that Hagee and other evangelicals believe strongly that an end-time third temple will be built in Jerusalem prior to Christ's return. And they seem to suggest that Donald Trump will be instrumental in some way in helping to build that temple. And that brings us to the next question. Where is that temple going to be built? And what are the concerns of many, especially Arabs? Here's an article by Mint Press News, dated June 24, saying this. Some observers may have noticed the growing effort by some Israeli government and religious officials to remove, now listen carefully, to remove the Dome of the Rock and al-Aqsa mosque from the Jerusalem skyline, not only erasing the holy site in official posters, banners, and educational material, but also physically removing the building itself. For instance, current Knesset member of the ruling Likud party, American-born Yehuda Glick, was also the director of the government-funded Temple Institute, which has created relics and detailed architectural plans for a temple that they hope will soon replace al-Aqsa. In the end, we will build the temple and it will be a house of prayer for all nations, Glick told Israeli newspaper Maariv in 2012. A year later, Israel's agricultural minister Uri Ariel stated that we need to build a real temple on the Temple Mount. Ariel stated that the new Jewish temple must be built on the site where al-Aqsa currently sits. And then the article goes on to say that in recent years, a centuries-old effort has gone increasingly mainstream in Israel, with prominent politicians, religious figures, and political parties advocating for the destruction of the Dome of the Rock and al-Aqsa Mosque in order to fulfill a specific interpretation of an end-time prophecy. This movement has gained powerful allies, not just in Israel's government, but among many evangelical Christians in the United States, including top figures in the Trump administration who also feel that the destruction of al-Aqsa and the reconstruction of a Jewish temple are prerequisites for the fulfillment of prophecy. Furthermore, given the influence of such movements on the Israeli and US governments, these beliefs are pushing the world towards a dangerous war. And there's much more in this article, but that should suffice. Now, we want to say very clearly we are not aware of anybody in the United States advocating the destruction of the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. But of course we know there is a strong movement, a strong belief that the third temple will be built in fulfillment to biblical prophecy, which in fact is going to happen. So you imagine the scenario. What is going to be the reaction of the Europeans, of the Arabs? And interestingly enough, the Bible tells us that a collaboration is going to take place between the Europeans and the Arabs against Israel. For more information, I'd like to offer you another free booklet, How Can We Know That Christ's Return is Near? This booklet talks about the Third Temple. It talks about all the events which are going to take place in a very short time. And so, combined with this booklet, The Fall and Rise of the Jewish People, you will have a much clearer picture as to what's going to happen, and it's going to happen in the near future. Thank you very much for listening. This is Norbert Link for the Standing Watch program.
Standing Watch is a presentation by The Church of the Eternal God, P.O. Box 270519, San Diego, California 92198. More information is also available at our website, eternalgod.org.